Good evening and welcome to the February 5th meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. This meeting is being held virtually via Zoom video conference and is also being broadcast by FCTV on cable channel 9. As this meeting is being recorded by Zoom and broadcast by FCTV, please be cognizant of what you say, how you say it, and what can be seen and heard in your background. We are missing one commissioner tonight. However, we have a quorum. We're moving forward. Just as a reminder for commenting, I'll call on each of you in turn, and all votes have to be done by roll call. So when I call your name, please state your name and your vote for the record, even if you've made the motion or the second. To our public attendees, at any time during this meeting, you may enter any comments or questions via the chat function. At the appropriate time, they will be read into the record. If, as an attendee, you'd like to participate in a particular hearing, let us know via the chat function. Then at the appropriate time, you will be promoted into the hearing as a participant. When you are selected, you must have your video enabled, be succinct and respectful of others. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. Regarding RDAs, under a request for determination of applicability, the applicant is asking the commission to determine if the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and/or the Falmouth Wetlands bylaw apply to their proposed project. A negative determination is that the provisions of the act and/or the bylaw do not apply. Therefore, the project may proceed as proposed. A positive determination means the provisions of the act and/or the bylaw do in fact apply and/or may require some conditions. Therefore, the project would require a notice of intent application. So as an applicant, you kind of want to hear a negative determination. For the benefit of anyone waiting for a particular hearing tonight, and so that you're not waiting unnecessarily, the following hearings are expected to be continued: 0 Central Avenue and 0 Davisville Road. First up, executive session, Mass General Laws C30A, Section 21A6. To consider purchase, exchange, taking, lease, or value of real property where discussion in open session would have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the town. What that means is we're going into executive session. We're going into a different meeting. This regular meeting will continue after that. So it'll be a few minutes before we're back. So I'll be looking for a motion and a second to enter executive session.
I'll move that we enter executive session.
Patton, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to go into executive session. We're voting on that motion. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Russ?
Robbins, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous with this quorum. We are entering executive session. See you shortly, people. Meeting. We have a couple of continuances to announce, so we'll buy some time before Russ gets in. First up is a request for continuance under notice of intent. Ronaldo Andrade, 0 Central Avenue, map and parcel ID is 32-04-004-002, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct a single-family dwelling and install a Title V sewage disposal system on an undeveloped lot. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until February 26th.
Bird, so move.
Patton, second.
Russell's in the meeting, Jamie.
Oh, there he is.
This
All
is
right.
the second continuance.
No, it hasn't been opened yet.
Okay.
So it's the first. All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until February 26th. We're voting on the continuance. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Russ?
Robbins, aye.
Steve?
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until February 26th. Next up, Wayne Van Wart, the Seashell Lane Community Association, Inc. 0 Davisville Road, map and parcel ID is 40-11-013-000, Falmouth, Mass. Full permission to reconstruct and enlarge an existing licensed, and they ran out of words. I think it was pier. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4. This will be the 5th continuance. Jen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I know they've asked for a continuance a bunch of times. They have some kind of serious issues they're dealing with on the parcel where the dock is. So there's a number of violations that they have to deal with, both us and the planning board. So they're trying to come back and have a plan to present to this board to review that addresses all the violation issues, not only in our jurisdiction, but also in regards to their special permit from the planning board. Before I said that they needed to deal with that before we would entertain a discussion on creating 4 additional slips at this community dock. So they are working on that. It's taken them some time because it's an association. There's a lot of people involved. So they are moving forward. They are doing the best they can, and they have asked for another continuance until February 26th. So they're going to try to get you a plan a week in advance to at least open the hearing and get it in front of the board.
You think that's enough time?
They say it is. They're working. It's just there's a lot of
I get all that, but let's
Yeah.
kick it down the road. We started this back in. All right.
They're aware, Mr. Chairman.
You don't sound very convincing. All right. What are we looking at, folks? We have a request to continue this until 2/26.
So moved, Gladfelter.
Bird second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until February 26th. We're voting on the continuance. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until February 26th. Next up are requests for determination of applicability. First up, Robert Jaget, 351 Davisville Road, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to replace decking and rails on an existing back deck and to enlarge an existing front deck. Alyssa.
This application has been withdrawn.
All righty then.
It's easy.
Yeah, could have told me that before I read all that. All right, next up, Peter and Julie Wyman, 14 Francis Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct an outdoor pool and spa with a granite patio and to construct a pool house with a porch and pool equipment pad. Alyssa.
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed, and this project solely takes place in an AE flood zone.
Bird so moved.
Gladfelter, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Questions or comments? We're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Bradley M. Kuchar, trustee, 24 Sassafras Lane Realty Trust, 24 Sassafras Lane, North Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct a detached garage and a new driveway. Alyssa.
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird so moved.
Gladfelter, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Questions or comments? We're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, John Wayan, 9 Hawks Way, West Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct a deck with stairs. Alyssa.
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Gladfelter, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Questions or comments? We're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up is a continued request for determination of applicability. Joe Hosford, 8 Rice Street, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct 2 dormers. Alyssa.
Yes, so this is the continued RDA from our last hearing. There was sort of 2 portions to this RDA. The original request was to construct dormers, which you guys have already approved. During the review process, we did discover an unpermitted shed on the property, so the hearing was continued so the commission could make a site visit and receive all of the staff information about the project and the site plan for the property. I do believe the homeowners are here to continue to ask any questions. As a reminder, staff's recommendation was a positive simply because the shed is located in a velocity zone. It's also located within the 100-foot setback to a salt marsh. So with a 3-to-1 mitigation, you are over that maximum 200 square feet for an RDA. But since you guys have been considering allowing sheds to be a bite of the apple for that 200 square foot allotted increase of structure in a velocity zone, it could be approvable.
Okay, so to be clear, despite what I'm sorry, what am I trying to say? Where it says for permission to construct the 2 dormers, we already granted permission for that. So what we're here for tonight is whether we're going to allow the shed to stay as it is or if it has to move to a notice. So that's going to be what we're looking for, basically.
Yes.
Okay, so Jen, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you, Jen.
You're not muted.
Can't hear you,
We
Jen.
hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, you need to increase your volume, but yeah.
All right, sorry about that. No, like Alyssa said, the only reason that we recommended the positive for the shed was, 1, it was in the velocity zone. If you were allowed to keep it, it would be over that typical 200 square feet we usually see as mitigation under an RDA, which is what prompted our positive. So we could condition that, you know, the plants remain, they remain in good health, they aren't pruned. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner comments, Courtney.
So have they moved the shed? Is that what's changed?
No,
No.
No? Okay. So
I don't think there's anywhere to move it to
Yeah.
be outside the velocity zone.
That whole area is in the velocity zone.
All right, you good, Courtney?
what's that? Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just got a question for Jen.
sure, Russ, I think Jamie's frozen right now, so what's your question, Russ?
What was the story with the, we had another situation. I don't think I was on at the time, but I remember hearing about it. It was the end in this Central Ave on the corner of Minot Road. Wasn't that gentleman required to remove a shed completely from the property?
Yes, he was. That shed was removed.
Okay, would this set a precedent? Is it something that would come back?
I think right now, Russell, we're doing some, we're looking at our regulations. We're doing some regulatory review meetings, and we are looking at allowing sheds, and sheds in V zones as long as it doesn't trip that 200. So we're looking at that. We're moving in that direction. It's just not written in that way right now.
Thanks, Jen.
And this shed actually is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Alyssa, it's actually in front of the house. Right, Alyssa? Isn't it in front of the house?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not on the water side, it's actually tucked in and almost protected by the house. So that wall of water is going to hit the house first and then the shed.
All right, Russ, you good?
Thank you, Jen.
All right, I don't know what happened. I left the meeting for a second. I have no idea what went on. My whole screen went blank. So I think I missed Kevin's comments.
No, actually, Kevin didn't comment, Mr. Chairman. Russell had a question and I answered it, so you're fine.
Okay. All right. So, Kevin,
No further comments. I hesitate to say this, but I think I understand what's going on and I'm fine.
okay. All right. I'm okay with the shed where it is. I think if it has 3-to-1 mitigation,
Yeah.
it'd be fine. I think it's in the only place on the property that I can go. I'm okay with it. It's the kind of thing we've been talking about in the regulatory meeting. I know we're not there yet, but so that's my 2 cents. All right, Russ, any additional comments?
I'm
Okay.
just Chairman.
Steve.
No good comments. Thank you.
All right, Betsy.
How did we hear Steve without his?
I see
wasn't
two
unmuted.
Steves.
We have two
Does
Steves.
anyone
Oh, there are
else
two
see?
Steves. Oh, okay,
How many
that's why.
Steves? Yeah.
Do both Steves say that, Steve? Anyway, Jamie, I have no problem with this project.
Excellent. All right,
I like the frozen one.
yeah, Jen.
Mr. Stork has his hand raised, and I do believe he would like to address the board, so I'm going to promote him up as a panelist. He's the property owner.
So why does it say Joseph Hosford? The
Why
applicant.
does it?
That
Why
was
is the
the
applicant
applicant.
Horsford?
No, he's
Um,
hi.
Whatever.
Joe, can you hear me?
Yes. Turn your
Yes.
video on, please.
Trying to get the video going. Joe Hosford was our
There you are.
contractor that we hired to do the dormers on the 3rd floor, and he went in
Understood.
for the building application, which triggered this process.
Thank you.
But we really we just want to thank you for especially the staff for their consideration of this, and we know that this is a problem that you're going to face all over, and I hope that you deal with it in a way that's that you dealt with us, through mitigation, so that something positive comes out of this. And I mean, moving the shed would just it doesn't seem like the right thing to do for conservation, but so we thank you for your consideration.
All right. To be clear, Mr. Stork, you guys are willing to provide the 3-to-1 mitigation if approved?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Then I'll make a motion to approve, to make a negative determination on this RDA.
Bird second. With
All right, Jen, are
one
we covered?
qualifier, I think we should ask him to tether the shed to the house so it doesn't blow away.
We're willing to do that.
Jen, procedurally, are we proceeding correctly? We're offering a negative determination. Do we need to cite state and town?
Yes, it'd be, I think it'd be a -2 under both, but we can change that to a -3 if need be for a technical reason, but that's fine.
Okay. So the motion and the second on the table is to approve a negative determination, which would allow the shed to stay with the condition that it has 3-to-1 mitigation.
I would only add, Mr. Chairman, that Mr. and Mrs. Storks, we're going to put a date certain on that mitigation, so we'll give you a
Sure.
deadline in which to plant it, and we'll go out there and work with you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
All right, Alyssa.
Should we caveat a revised plan as well to propose a location?
No, not if you guys are going to work through it with them.
Yeah, but we do
I'm
need to
gonna ask
actually,
for one.
yeah, we're going to need to see it on a plan. So who did the plan, Alyssa?
Unfortunately, I don't
BSS.
have it in front of me. Oh, okay.
Yeah, BSS did the plan. So you're
Okay.
talking about putting the mitigation on the plan, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so we know where it is. So we have a
Okay.
record of where it went. So that is
Sure.
important. So we'll be in touch with you this week and we'll give you next steps.
Sounds
Very
good. Thank you
good.
very much.
Thanks
Okay.
a lot, everybody. Good
Certainly.
night.
All right, so we're gonna vote on the
Right.
motion in the second. Steve, you had your hand up, sorry.
Yes, sir. I just want to clarify, it's a negative motion.
It's a negative determination is what we're voting for. So it would be
And
just
I
as
want to
if,
approve a negative determination?
that's what we're voting for,
Yeah, that's what
yes.
we usually do. Staff's recommendation is usually a negative determination.
And we
But I
approve
didn't-
that? But we want them to keep the shed.
Yeah,
Should I
Yes.
vote
A negative-
against it?
no, you should vote for the negative determination. It means they can keep the shed.
Keep the shed.
We're not having a positive determination, which would mean they might be able to keep the shed, but they would have to put in an NOI.
Got it.
So this is where no means yes,
I
to
understand.
paraphrase Mr. Byrd.
This was just
All right, I saw-
a double negative as I saw it.
Double negative, exactly. I saw somebody's hand up. I don't know, was it Alyssa or Jen?
It was me. I was going to try to explain it to Steve, but I think he has it.
All right. The motion on the table is to approve a negative determination. We're voting Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Russ,
Robin's eye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have issued a negative determination with the assistance of staff. Thank you for all that help. To Alyssa and Fallon. All right, next up, our request for hearing under notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. As a reminder, public commenting is limited to 3 minutes, so I encourage you to stay within the purview of this board, which are the rules and regulations of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Wetlands Bylaw, and how they pertain to a particular application. The chair reserves the right to stop any commenting that is disparaging or inconsequential to the hearing. First up, William and Elizabeth Scannell, 314 Quistit Avenue, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to reconstruct an existing licensed pier. Jen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have promoted Mike Borselli to present his project.
And Mr. Borselli, you had exception with, you only saw my face on the screen earlier, and you made that sound bad. I don't know what's up with that.
It was only when you talked and then you went away. So when you didn't talk, it was a lot better. But...
Man, you just dug a deeper hole.
I couldn't resist. Sorry, but I can see everyone now.
All right, I make a motion to decline his project. All right, Mr. Borselli, you're up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. With your permission, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to share my screen.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. For orientation purposes, I just wanted to show you this aerial photo. The property's at 314 Quistit Avenue. You may know it as the former National Academy of Sciences property. It's on a peninsula off Quistit Avenue. There were a couple of recent RDA applications submitted that you reviewed. There's a carriage house on the approach to the property. There's a large circular driveway and a gravel parking lot that was used for various functions when it was the National Academy of Sciences. It's on Quistit Harbor. Directly to the north and west is the knob. And you can see, if I zoom in on this, the house, and then just south of the house, southwest of it, you can see the pier. This pier has the benefit of a Chapter 91 license from 1934. So it's a 90-year-old license. The house is undergoing interior renovations, and the architect did research and came up with a lot of old photos, one of which I wanted to share with you. This shows the original house in the background and the existing dock sometime a long time ago. It's not dated, but it's certainly you know,
From the
several
30s.
decades ago. And we're here tonight asking for permission to rebuild that. I submitted a plan that shows the pier, ramp, and float on the property. It's located in this location. Again, for reference, here's the house. This is an overview of the lot. A blow up of the pier shows its dimensions, its length. It has a fixed T 12 by 22 with a ramp and a 17 by 17 foot float. And it has pilings. We're proposing to rebuild it in kind in the same position, but with the current materials that are available. A lot of the pilings are degraded. They were creosote, which was the standard type marine lumber at the time. Through the years, there were some patches and fixes made to this, but it's certainly outlived its useful life. It still functions, but it's definitely in need of replacement. So we're proposing to rebuild it in kind, typical construction that you've seen for docks, non-CCA treated materials. The piles will be driven, not jetted. The water depths are shown on the plan, reference to low tide. At low tide, there's an excess of, well, there's about 8 feet. It varies from like 7.5 to 8.5 at the end. It does cross one section of salt marsh. In the profile that we provided for the project shows where that crossing of the salt marsh is. And the reconstructed dock will conform with the DMF standard for 1.5 times the width of the walkway. At its closest point, it's about 7.5 feet above the salt marsh, which works well with where the access is up on the paved driveway right here. We thought it would be best to not ask for relief from that recommendation from DMF, so we adjusted the height to meet that standard. Here, the distance is even greater. It's probably closer to 9.5 feet. Staff comments included, I'm gonna stop sharing.
Yes.
Staff comments were limited. There was one question about that specific thing where we're crossing the salt marsh. You have a regulation that recommends 50% sunlight penetration decking when crossing a salt marsh. We're hoping that you'll allow us to use the same materials that are on the current dock, which are 2x6 decking with 1/2-inch spacing, given that we are meeting the DMF policy standard for 1.5 times the width separation. The salt marsh is, it's a sparse salt marsh. The beach is a rocky, it's not a sandy beach. It's not a peat shelf type of salt marsh. There is just salt marsh vegetation finding its way through the rocks. It's healthy. It's clearly not impacted by the dock as far as sunlight shading or anything like that. That was the only comment of note on the staff report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mike. Jen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The only thing we would have a concern on, and Betsy, you might be able to comment on this, is if that dock is 7 feet higher or 7 feet above that salt marsh, is it enough? How is it oriented, Mike? From sunrise to sunset, how is the dock oriented?
I could show you again if I share my screen. For reference, trying to get you to a north arrow, the north arrow up here. So the sun, east, west is this direction. So I don't know, it's the dock is in a southwest.
Yeah. Okay.
Orientation. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that was the only concern we had. I know there was, we received, I think, a few emails and maybe a call while I was out regarding some concerns about eelgrass being in that area, but it's a reconstruction of a dock that's been there for almost 90 years. So they're not expanding it, so there would not be any prohibition to allow them to reconstruct it. They're not enlarging it into even more eelgrass. They're just basically rebuilding what is currently there. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Alyssa.
No comments. Thank you.
All right. Russ, I'm gonna put you in the hot seat.
I've got nothing. I think it's a good project.
Okay. Steve?
Yeah, pretty straightforward, Mr. Chairman. I don't see anything. Thank you.
All right. Betsy?
Yeah, I don't have a problem either. I mean, it's the best orientation
Yeah.
as far as the sun, as far as summer sun. And I don't think it'll have that much shadow through the day.
All right. Courtney?
No questions.
All right. Kevin?
No questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
There's nothing in the public chat function, Mr. Chairman, but there is somebody that has their hand raised. I'm going to be promoting a Susan Edson to be a panelist to ask her question.
Okay.
And then there is a somebody just did put a chat in, so we'll go with that after Miss Edson.
I am Susan. Sorry, thank you. Thanks for listening to me. This is more of a request. My name is Susan Edson. I am one of the owners of the James Marshall House LLC, which is right next to the what was the National Academy of Science originally was my great-grandfather's house. There are about 6 piers in the outer harbor, and none of them have lights that shine at night. I noticed that the Scannells wanted to have lights along the pier. I have no problem with that when they're using the pier at night, but it is a detriment to the rest of the whole ambiance of the outer harbor if people have lights on all the time. And all of the owners in the outer harbor have never done that. So I respectfully request you pass along to the Scannells the request that they do not use the lights unless they have to, and not have them on all the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you for participating. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there is a chat from Marky Close. Current floating dock is 6 by 16. Plan has 17 by 17. Mike, which is it?
The license allows for a 17 by 17, and we wanted to maintain the dimensions that the license allowed.
Okay.
All right. As far as the lighting goes, we normally require down lighting anyway in low voltage, low wattage. So that would be a standard condition anyway, correct?
We can make sure it's in there. Down lighting, low voltage. Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jen, just for the record, when I ask you for public chat, my perspective, I think I'm asking you for all encompassing. If there's anybody wants to speak, comment, whatever. So if I should use different verbiage, just let me know. But I'm kind of asking if absolutely anybody wants to say anything or you know what I mean?
Yep, I understand, Mr. Chairman.
Just want to make sure everybody's included that wants to be included.
Yep.
So I'll make a motion.
Oh, no, hold on. Courtney?
Yeah, I just had Is it appropriate for us to condition the lighting to be that the only time they can have it on is when they're actually using the dock? I mean, I know that's an enforcement issue, but
I wouldn't think we could do that. I mean, our standard requirement from my memory is low wattage and only down lighting.
I mean, you could,
it's like step lighting so that, you know, nobody's tripping over anything. I don't know.
I mean, I think that lighting is, you know, having lighting is appropriate if they're using the dock, but if they're not, I know we anguished over this issue before with its effect on wildlife and all that stuff. So that's, I'm trying to come up with something that sounds reasonable and.
Yeah, Mike, could you?
The low lighting and the low voltage and the downward lighting is reasonable, Courtney.
Mike, could you pass that on to your client?
Yes, I'm happy to do that. And I wanted to remind you, you have a regulation that limits the foot candle power of the lights. So that, because there was a concern about these becoming false aids to navigation and things like that. And also to respect like the abutters from unnecessary lighting. It would only be if it's I will pass it on to the client, but if it's only very low light for foot, if you happen to be walking out on the dock at night for safety.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
One more, there's more public chat that keeps coming in. I apologize, Mr. Chairman. Again, from Mark Clues, lighting is damaging to the fisheries, and question about length of the pier. What is your, Mike, can you confirm the length of the pier, please?
The length from mean high water to the very terminal end of the float is 138 feet, which is consistent with the license.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
And it's rebuilding kind, so it can't exceed that.
Correct.
All right. So
Make a
Betsy, you had a
motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Third, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Last call, questions or comments? We're voting to close the hearing. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Third, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Russ?
Robbins, aye.
Steve?
And aye.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Mr. Boselli.
Thank you.
Next up, Joseph and Lucia Giangrasso, 55 Little Island Road, West Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct a pervious patio and install previously required mitigation plantings. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mike Boselli is still with us to present his second project of the evening.
Mr. Boselli, you're up again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, Michael Boselli, Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant, Joseph and Lucia Giangrasso. With your permission, I'd like to share my screen.
Yes, sir.
I'm sharing with you the current site plan of the property. I'm sure you're familiar with this property. You reviewed it and issued an order of conditions in the not too distant past for a pool. And at the time when you issued the order of conditions, the pool was proposed to have no patio. And that was by design because there was no room to for any additional mitigation planting with an impervious patio. And the applicant was advised of that, and we kind of worked backwards in sizing the pool as large as it could be with the allowable area of mitigation planting. So the pool was more important than the patio. But unfortunately, over time, without permission, a patio became important, and there was no permits for that. And I became aware of it when there was an enforcement action issued. Your staff discovered there was a unpermitted patio constructed using one of their tools called Nearmap. And that's why I'm here. There was an enforcement order issued. We worked with Jen to first, the patio was removed that was unpermitted. There was actually an alteration of the required mitigation planting over here to allow for patio. And that was all removed, and we had a site meeting with Jen and the owner. The owner regrets what he did. He takes full responsibility and fault for his actions, and he asked me to try to basically get him out of trouble and try to get permission to restore the mitigation area back to the way it was supposed to be, which is the shaded area. This shaded green area was altered in a few places, not entirely, just in an area here, and there was a narrowing of it here. So what you see on here is what you approved when you approved the pool for the mitigation. The pool was built the proper size, the mitigation was installed correctly, a certificate of compliance was issued, and then this other work happened. So we're here tonight to ask permission to restore the altered mitigation in the buffer. But we're also here in hopes that we can persuade you to allow for a pervious patio instead of an impervious patio. Your regulations do allow for pervious surfaces that won't support natural vegetation without needing mitigation, as long as it's in an outer buffer zone B. And this isn't an outer buffer zone B to a wetland. The 50-foot no disturbance zone is identified, and then the 50-foot outer buffer zone is identified. And we're showing a shaded area that is pervious pavers in the outer buffer zone B only. And the pervious paver system is something we researched with a landscape contractor. And I'm sharing with you a typical cross section of what that is. I think you're familiar with them. They're built in a way that there's a crushed stone sub base, and there's a French drain system built within the crushed stone, and then there's this stone is 3/4 to 1.5 inches, and then this is 1/2 inch stone, and then this is pea stone, so that you can create a smooth surface to put the pervious pavers onto. The joints, as you can see on this is called Teco block, are such that the water drains through, it goes through the crushed stone. The bottom of this is on the subgrade is a geo mesh, and this pipe has perforations, and there's a large dry well right adjacent to the pool that is there for roof runoff. It's a large leaching pit actually, and this French drain system would drain the water from this into the dry well. So this is a pervious surface that won't support natural vegetation. As I understand your regulations, as they are written today, mitigation is not necessary for that. So that's what we were proposing to fix this. There is the dimensions on this patio area are shown. On this side, it's 12 feet. Over here, it's 12. On this side, it's 8 feet. On this side, it's 5. The pool itself, which is a structure, is set back 10 feet from the limit of work, which is your policy for a distance from a structure to provide what your regulations call a no structure zone. Well, we're asking though that there be a 5-foot strip of the pervious paver, which means that the edge of the pervious paver is only 5 feet from the limit of work. There'd be a band of grass between it and the required mitigation planting. We're very much open to putting in a single rail fence at the inside edge of the mitigation planting, as a reminder that that's not supposed to be mowed or altered. And we're hopeful that you can allow this solution to proceed. With that, I'll stop sharing and take questions.
Thanks, Mike.
Hello.
Jen,
Chairman,
Yeah, on Friday night.
Mike, what about the trees? The 3 trees?
Oh, yeah. So I work with. I had a meeting with Alyssa yesterday to talk about the staff report. I failed to mention this. These tupelo trees actually were planted in a different location, which is. I apologize. I'm talking about trees and you don't see the screen. These 3 tupelos were actually planted over here. I was showing the original position where they were proposed at the time that we originally presented the project to you. Staff did not seem to have an issue with the fact that they were planted over here. I can revise the plan and show where the actual location of those tupelo trees are. There is like a distant view through here of the water. So these, at the time we didn't realize that, and these are right in that view. They would still be within the no disturbance zone A zone, just in a different position.
Okay. Single rail fence is good. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
all right. Alyssa,
Nothing to add at this time. Thank you.
okay. Just for clarification, staff, you guys are okay with where the tupelos are located now?
I did visit the site. I do think that they are in a fine location.
Okay.
They could benefit from the trees. Because they were replanted, I do think perhaps 2 of them are a smidge too close together. But since they'll have to get in there anyway, we can address that on site.
Okay, thank you. All right, commissioner comments and questions. Steve?
I don't have any other questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All
I
right,
think this will work.
Betsy?
Yeah, I have no further questions or comments.
Okay, Courtney?
A couple of questions on your pavers. Are the paver bricks themselves pervious, or is it because of the gap you're leaving?
Because of the joints.
Okay, so the problem that I see,
Yeah.
you're going to leave probably what, 3/8 to a 1/2 inch joint?
Mm-hmm.
So those are going to fill up with debris, and you're going to have a problem with the thing draining properly and defeating the purpose of it.
Yeah, there is some maintenance required to this. It's recommended you keep the joints clean by vacuuming and blowing, but if that is something that requires ongoing maintenance, there's no question.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a concern, because how do we, as a committee, monitor it? Just, that's the only issue I have with this.
All right. Mike, you said there's a dry well or a drawdown tank. I don't see it located on the plan. And by that, I mean, I don't see it. Do you have it on there?
You do not see it because I do not show it. I
right.
can add it to the plan and I can direct you to its location just quickly by sharing my screen.
You said it's bigger than a standard dry well?
Yeah, it's a 6-foot diameter, 6-foot deep leaching pit. And it's right here, and it collects the entire the roof, and we were gonna pipe the French drain under drain system to it as well.
Okay. My other question is on the, let's see, west side of the pool, you show new deck.
Yes, well, that was an approved deck. It's an existing deck now.
Okay.
That was reviewed and approved at the original order. It was constructed slightly different, but during the compliance review, we demonstrated to Alyssa that this area of it was the same as what was originally proposed that you approved. It was just slightly different. It was narrower, but longer. But it didn't go any closer to the wetland resource, and it wasn't larger. So the words new deck, or it should say existing deck.
Or just deck like the rest of them?
Yeah, it's a recently constructed deck as opposed to the other deck.
Okay, thank you. Kevin?
I guess no additional comments. Thank you.
All right. Russ?
I'm good, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function or emails or text or anything you may have?
Nobody wishes to comment on this project.
Right.
And I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
And second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Last call, questions or comments? All right. We're voting to close the hearing. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Russ, sorry.
Robbins, aye.
Steve?
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Thomas and Marianne Verillo, 43 Southview Way, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct a dock. And continuing with the Mike Borselli show, Mike, you're up.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, representing the applicant, Thomas and Marianne Verillo. With your permission, I'd like to share my screen.
Yes, sir.
The Verillos own the property at number 43 Southview Way. It's on a fresh water pond called Flax Pond. You have recently reviewed and issued orders of conditions for two light duty kayak docks, canoe dock type structures. One immediately 2 lots to the left of this lot and one directly across the pond from this property. The property has an existing house, typical landscape areas. It has a slope down to the pond. The pond itself is fresh water, so the wetland resource is land under water body. There's also an inland bank, which is coincident with the annual high pond elevation. There's a path leading from the upland down to the water's edge where there was a small set of stairs, or is a small set of stairs, which you can see in the background. And the applicant is proposing to eliminate those stairs and instead, not eliminate those stairs, to build a connection to those stairs with a small section of fixed pier and then a ramp to a float system. The T of the float would be 8 by 12, which is 96 square feet. It extends out into the pond 32 feet. In the water depth, reference to the pond level is well over 3 feet. It averages about 5 feet in this location. The purpose of this is to gain safe access to the pond. Currently, these stairs lead to the shore, and the pond drops off quickly with an inland bank. So it, if you look at the a profile of the structure, which I'm going to share with you right now. You can see these existing stairs. And then the drop off here. So the idea is to blend the small section of fixed pier, 4 foot wide, to those stairs, and then have a 3x16 ramp onto a landing float, and then the T 8x12 out here. This would all be fixed by, the floats would be fixed by 4-inch diameter galvanized steel pipes. The timber portion would utilize 6x6 posts that would be augured in to the pond. There's a requirement to provide public access along the shore under Chapter 91 requirements, even though it's very unlikely that anyone really would be walking along here, but you still must provide that. And the only viable way to do that is to provide stairs up and around and then back down. There was a question by the staff about this orientation of the stairs. You've seen them so that they're more oriented the other direction. But because of the slope of the pond, I'll go back to that quickly. Because of the slope of the bottom, trying to put stairs on that slope sort of perpendicular to it would be difficult. So we instead oriented them so that they would be parallel with the way the pond sloped down into the deeper water. So if you were to be coming across or walking across the pond edge, you'd come up these stairs on the landing and then back down. This is, for the most part, similar to the most recent ones you reviewed on this pond. It's for private recreational use, kayaks, canoes, swimming, and fishing. And with that, I'm happy to take questions.
Mike, Jen.
Yes, Mike. What about the slate walkway that's on the property? Are we mitigating for that?
I should have mentioned the staff comments. There was a question about this slate walkway. I have not spoken to my client yet, but I'm sure there was not permission for this. I'm going to add this is a priority habitat. I'm going to add the 100-foot no disturbance zone A to this. And most of this is within the no disturbance zone A, so there would either need to be mitigation for it or it would have to be removed. There's also a kayak rack, which is a couple of, I think they're 4x4s that create like a square that I think they just set the kayaks on. It's not like a timber deck or anything. It's just like supported with cinder blocks so that kayaks could just be rested on it. I'm going to advise the client that now that we have the dock, that they should find a way to store the kayaks, along the side. They can create like a rack system on the side, or just store them on the dock itself and eliminate that kayak rack. And we were hoping we could work with staff if we're going to mitigate, instead of remove the slate, by providing mitigation planting in this area. And there's actually like a secondary path there's no use for.
Screen, Mike.
Like you're not sharing.
I'm sorry. The kayak rack is in this location. There'd be mitigation opportunities here. There's a secondary path that is really not used at all. This is the primary path. So there's an opportunity that should not be there if you already have one path. So there's an opportunity to mitigate for the slate The slate's here because it's a little uneven in this beginning part of the path. That's why they have it there. But so we're hoping that you'd be able to, if this is a acceptable close, and we could work with staff to mitigate for that or eliminate the slate.
Mike, did you get comments back from Natural Heritage?
I have not received comments from Natural Heritage yet, so for that reason, I will need a continuance, actually. Because they have 30 days to comment. You're having a hearing less than 30
Yeah,
days.
so we'll have to continue it for comments. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Alyssa.
Nothing to add. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner comments. Betsy.
No comments.
Okay. Courtney.
No comments.
All right. I think I concur. Kevin.
No comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Russ.
No comments.
Steve.
No comments.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Doesn't look like there's anything in the public chat, Mr. Chairman. No.
All right, Mike, you have a request for us?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd request a continuance. I think we should ask for 2 weeks. Hopefully we'll have comments by then. If you're meeting 2 weeks, that would be the there's no Concom on the 19th.
How about the 26th?
All right,
Well, that would be the next one, unless I can ask for the 12th, and if I have no comments, just not appear and request a continuance to the 26th. If we happen to get DMF comments, it's up either way, whatever pleases the commission.
We can try for the 12th, Mike. I mean, it's the Tidewater muck. It's that
Right,
pesky little freshwater mussel.
right, which on all other docks they've had no issues with.
No issues with. So let's just kick it to the 12th and hopefully we'll get the comments in. And if not, we'll just have to kick it.
And if I don't have comments, I'll just email requesting and not take up the.
Yeah, and then we'll just try to do the revisions to the plans for us and we can probably get that reviewed for you next week.
Okay,
At the request of the applicant, I make a motion to continue this to February 12th.
Bird, so move, second.
Mike, are you clear on what the changes they want to the plan?
I am. If I'm not, I can
Call
get it
us.
translated by your staff.
All right. So we have a motion and a second to continue this until February 12th. Last call, questions or comments? We're voting on the continuance. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Russ.
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
And I.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until February 12th. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. I guess I gotta go back in the audience until my final one.
I'm moving you right.
boy.
I'm moving you right now, Mike. Just give me a minute. There you go, right there.
All right. Next one has been previously continued.
Mike's frozen.
26th.
Oh,
The
there it
next
goes.
one is
Wait a minute. Did Central Avenue continued?
Central Ave has been continued until February 26th.
Thank you.
Next up is continued request for hearing under notice of intent. First one there is Chris Smith, Clancy Construction, 318 Sipawishett Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to raise, RAZE, an existing single-family dwelling, construct a new single-family dwelling with attached garage, deck, and patio, and upgrade the existing sewage disposal system. And the quorum excludes Russell. Jen.
Mr. Chairman, I have promoted Katrina from Strong Tree Engineering to present her continued project. Katrina, am I pulling anybody else up with you?
I do have Mr. John McGrath on board as well.
Okay, I see him.
Any questions?
Okay. Move to panelist. Okay, I'm promoting a Mr. McGrath up. Anybody else?
So, hello everyone. My name is Katerina Korlov. I'm with Strong Tree Engineering, and we are the representative for the client, who is Clancy Construction. I do believe Chris Smith of Clancy Construction may be on the meeting, as well as Kevin Lawley, who is the homeowner. However, for the most part, I will be speaking to represent this project. Now, we have already had one hearing regarding this project. May I share my screen?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm going to pull up an image of the site plan. Just a moment here. Make sure it's the correct. Okay. All right. So now here is the existing home here at 318 Sipawasset Road, and the wetlands is located north, and there's a slope here and a coastal bank. Now there has been, we have discussed the coastal bank at length, and I will talk about that a little bit later on. Here our proposed project is to raise and replace and to add this dwelling here. Now, as you'll see, the dwelling is farther away from the resource areas, and we are also replacing the septic tank here. The current driveway is made out of gravel, and it will be paved. Now, we have just learned that this gravel driveway is technically considered an impervious surface. Previously, our calculations included the change from what we believe was a pervious to an impervious surface. However, with the clarification from the board on the recent staff notes, this has changed our calculations. So some of the other staff notes that came up was the mention of some trails. There was concern that the trails were located on or adjacent to the property, and this is a copy of the trail map, and as you can see, the trails are here again is the property. The trails are located even north of the wetlands area and to the west, so there is actually no path. I wanted to make sure that was clarified. We also discussed this culvert here. Again, the house is located here on this image, and there's a 12-inch diameter culvert located here. This was also discussed in our recent updated revision. Here's an image of the culvert. So, and then I wanted to also present the updated impervious calculation image here. Now there's two resource areas that we are concerned with here with our calculations. We have the bordering vegetated wetland delineated by these flags here, the 0 to 50 and the 50 to 100. And you'll see here that we also have the coastal bank buffer zone. 0 to 50, 50 to 100, and the majority of the increase in impervious area would be located here in the 50 to 100 foot buffer zone from the coastal bank. Now, it is at this time that I will stop sharing for a moment, if I may. Actually not sure how to do that. So, oh, I see. Okay. All right. And then, so what I wanted to simply say is that in our recent revision, we discussed our findings based on a review of desktop and in-field observations. We feel that the coastal bank, the significant presumptions that would make up the coastal bank are not truly met. The coastal bank does not supply sediment to the beach, and this was discussed in that writing and in the supplemental information that we provided, and therefore the applicant is seeking relief from providing mitigation related to that 50 to 100 foot buffer zone of the coastal bank. It is at this time I would like to ask the board if they have any questions regarding the staff items that I have discussed now.
All right. Mr. McGrath, do you have anything to add at this point?
My name is John McGrath. I work for Strong Tree Engineering. I'm a professional wetland scientist. I did the delineation on the site, and following doing the delineation, we determined that there was a coastal bank associated with the site, and it is pretty far removed from the waterfront area. The bank itself is around a 2.5 acre abandoned cranberry bog that's sort of hourglass shaped, very flat base to it, heavily vegetated with swamp loosestrife. There's an outlet that passes from east to west under Sipawesset Road, about 500 feet from the bank, and it's elevated. It's a small 12-inch CMP pipe. There's no evidence of sediment that crosses through that culvert. There was only some organic material. The soils surrounding the bog itself are a Blasian till, sort of like a basal till almost, very rocky. There's stone walls. The soil series associated with the banks is is an ice contact glacial deposit. It's not unconsolidated material that you might typically find in a coastal bank, and there's no vegetation in the area either that is coastal vegetation, associated with any backwater that comes in. The culvert it appears to be used for flow equalization, and it's about 8 to 12 inches off of the base flow line of the area. In effect, our position on it, or at least my position on it after looking at it, was that the area can confine any sediment that might come into it, which we didn't find any erosion on any of the banks, and that it sort of act like a sediment trap or a temporary construction siltation type pond situation, whereby there's basically a sump under the outlet structure, and we don't feel as though it contributes any sediment in the form of beach nourishment to the beach associated, that the beach would need or dunes would need on the beach. So basically, we agree by definition under the regulations that it is a coastal bank, but under the presumptions of significance, we don't feel as though it provides any sediment to the waterfront area.
All right, you good?
If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. I've spent quite a bit of time out walking around the site, and I'm very familiar with the property.
Thank you. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I think the board does need to determine whether or not they feel that this coastal bank is significant. It may not be a sediment source, but you do need to determine whether it's significant to storm damage prevention and flood control. It is far. I mean, the property, to give you a kind of overview, and if you just give me 1 second, Mr. Chairman, I can share my screen. Just to show you. Can everyone, oh wait, share. Can everyone see that? So here's the beach. Here's I think it's this flume pond. There's some sort of culvert under the road. So it's way up here. And if you can see, I mean, it's in the upper reaches of that flood zone. So it's just this part of the property right here that's in the flood zone that's creating that bank.
Okay.
So that might give you guys a little bit more context in which to make that decision.
Okay.
And I think I think that's all I have for right now.
All right, Alyssa.
It's gonna have to take this one over.
Nothing to add at this time.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioner comments and questions, Courtney.
So your testimony is that what we're calling a coastal bank is really a geologic deposit like a esker or something like that?
Well, I think it's part of the terminal moraine, but basically the point we were making, or the request we made on behalf of the applicant, was to ask to waive the mitigation requirement in the buffer zone to the coastal bank, because the coastal bank itself doesn't act as a coastal bank. There isn't actively sediment moving from this area. It's quite far removed. There has been some revisions to the plan that sort of negate that request to some extent. But like I said, by definition, it follows a flood zone in, and at one point the grades increase by 4.1 or greater, which extends the line up a little bit above the existing flood elevation. You know, land subject to coastal flowage, I equate it to the land subject to coastal flowage in that it provides the same flood protection that you get from that particular resource area. And whereas coastal bank might extend further above that area and provide sediment, which I've been in the field and I really don't see any evidence that any sediment, you know, it's a big area that would actually migrate out of that area through that culvert. So it's my opinion on it. I've taken a look at it, you know, and like I said, initially when I delineated the site, it was so far removed from the waterfront area. I was surprised when I came back and we looked at the maps and found that it, in fact, you know, the flood elevation did extend through the property from the waterfront, but it's quite a ways removed from the beach area.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions?
All right. Kevin.
No questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Steve?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Betsy?
Yeah, I think you've made a case that you've overcome the presumptions of
The bank.
yeah. I mean, it doesn't provide sediment, very, very unlikely, and it's not really providing flood control either. So I don't have a problem.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat function, Mr. Chairman.
You want a motion?
Please.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Bird second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Last call, questions or comments? Voting to close the hearing, Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Steve.
And I.
It is unanimous with this quorum. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Mr. McGrath. Thank you, Ms. Corloff.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Next up has been previously continued to 226. 226 getting busy? Hopefully not too. Next up, Michael Bedard, 27 Sycamore LLC, 27 Sycamore Street, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to raise, R-A-Z-E, the existing single-family dwelling and shed, construct a new single-family dwelling with attached garage, deck, and porch, install a paved driveway and retaining wall, reconnect to town sewer, and install mitigation plantings. And this was continued from, I don't know when, 122, and it was not open. Do I have that correct? All right, so that quorum is all of us tonight. Jen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've promoted Mark Dibb up from Cape and Islands Engineering to present this project.
Mr. Dibb, you're up, sir.
Good evening, Mark Dibb with Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicant Michael Bedard for 27 Sycamore LLC at 27 Sycamore. With your permission, I'd like to share my screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the project before you tonight is a raise and replace of an existing dwelling, which is in this heavier dotted footprint, and removal of an existing shed at the property at 27 Sycamore. The property is situated to the west of Great Pond. There is we've delineated a salt marsh as well as a coastal bank on the other side of Great Bay Street. And there is a flood zone and the Limwa line in this location. That is a line between 14 and 12, and then the remainder of the property is in AE flood zone elevation 12. The associated buffer zones, there's an A buffer zone to this point on the property and a B buffer zone right here. So the proposed project is to remove the existing dwelling, and we're proposing a new dwelling that will be situated appropriate for the flood zone. We're actually putting the finished floor up at 16, which is a little bit higher than required, but even the newer regs do require that are coming up would require it to be 2 feet above base flood elevation. And they're putting this house up at 16. There's associated decks on this side, on the water side, as well as a couple staircases down off these decks and elevation. There's one here, as well as more of a stone type terrace walkway coming down with the driveway off the back here, as well as this is a 1-car garage door right here in this area. As noted in the project description, the house is currently on town sewer and will be continued to be connected to town sewer. We're proposing roof runoff dry wells that the property does not have right now, as well as a catch basin at this area on the property. And the proposed project, there is a very small portion of the existing house in the B zone, and then there is some new improvement in the B buffer zone, a net plus change of 160 square feet, which is being mitigated for in this portion of the property. There is also a single tree right here on the site that is being proposed to be replaced at this location. There was a couple comments from staff. One, there's a rather large branch that kind of runs towards the east over the shed. I took a look at that. I do believe the shed can be removed without significantly removing that branch. Maybe some smaller little pieces of it might have to be, but the significant portion of that branch could stay, and it's also far enough away from the proposed house, so we believe that can remain. The initial submitted project had a raised kind of sitting terrace in this area, which is quite a bit of fill in the flood zone. That's been removed from the project. Now really we're just trying to get off the elevated structure with some stairs coming down. We did clarify plantings for the mitigation, as it's on a pretty low portion of the site adjacent to the waters, so we made sure appropriate species are proposed, a mix of facultative species that should handle wet and dry conditions for the property. Believe that is all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Mark. Jen.
No questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Melissa.
Nothing to add. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner comments. I don't know where we're at. Kevin, we'll start with you.
Oh, too bad. No comments, Mr. Chairman.
Russ.
I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Steve.
Amazing job for this site. Amazing. Thank you. No comments.
All right. Betsy.
I'm good too.
Oh boy. Courtney.
Me too.
All right, I'm going to break that. No, I'm not. It's good. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function,
Mark looked
please?
disappointed.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I think the owner of 21 Sycamore is asking Sarah Lavoy, are there 2 driveways on the property or 1 continuous U-shaped driveway?
Proposed, there will be not 1 continuous U-shaped driveway. This driveway comes into a couple garage spaces here. And
you have to show us the map.
You're not sharing.
Yeah, sorry about that. Excuse while I zoom in. So the existing driveways is in this area. There is just one it is not a continuous loop. It is a driveway to a couple garage doors here, as well as an additional garage door here. If that answers the question.
All right.
So there are
Thank
3
you.
garages?
Correct.
Okay.
And then they said, we're requesting that they own parcel 21. So they are requesting that our tree and its branches at the corner of the lot are not touched. And then there is a comment that there is no existing driveway currently.
I think I misread my own plan. Yeah, I do not see. Yeah, there is no existing driveway. I agree.
And most of those driveways, Mark, are outside of that buffer zone B to the top of the coastal bank.
Correct. There is one little piece here, and that was picked up as part of the mitigation requirement, this little triangle.
Perfect.
But yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, you can stop sharing, Mark.
Make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Third, second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Last call, questions or comments? All right, we're voting to close the hearing. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Russ.
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Mr. Dibb. Sorry you weren't able to get continued and come back again, but sometimes we're efficient.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Night, Mark.
Next up are requests to amend an existing order of conditions. First up, Gaetano Fedora, 258 Edgewater Drive East, East Falmouth, Mass. Request to amend the order of conditions for Mass DEP number 25-4772 to permit the reconstruction of a timber landscape wall with stone, permit the construction of a new landscape wall after the fact, and install mitigation plantings. Jen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have promoted Mike Borselli to present his, what are you presenting, Mike? An amended project, excuse me.
He's
Mr.
back.
Morselli, you're up, sir.
Jen's fading fast.
Yeah, I am.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to share my screen.
Yes, sir.
For the record, Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, I represent the applicant. Gaetano Federa, who owns the property at 258 Edgewater Drive East. You recently issued an order of conditions to allow him to raise and reconstruct the existing house, which is underway, close to being complete, but not quite. Some of the remaining activities are related to landscaping, which is the purpose for my request for amendment tonight. There is an existing timber wall on the property that has been there since probably the original house was built, that retains about 3 feet of earth here, and it's made out of old timber landscape ties, not creosote, but like some pressure treated timbers here, and there's some steps that lead down to a path that lead to a dock. And Mr. Federa is a stonemason by trade. So anytime he sees anything made out of timber that's retaining, he wants to immediately convert it to stone. So we're proposing to remove the landscape timbers and replace in the same exact location stone landscape wall. When I was approached by, when I met Mr. Federa, he contacted me about this, and I wanted to go refresh my memory. I noticed a couple of things, which is why there's an after the fact permission requested. And what I noticed was that there was a stone wall built here and some stairs to help ease this grade around the building. The original design had assumed the grade would just flow around this side and it would be like a walkout on this side. But because of access off this, him wanting access off this deck that didn't require a flight of stairs, and probably because there was a pile of stones and he can't help himself, he decided to build another landscape stone wall here. And that's what we're asking for after the fact permission to permit. So the staff comments were limited. I did add mitigation planting for what I perceived as the only part that required additional mitigation, because this timber wall is already there and we're replacing it in kind. But in my conversations with Alyssa, she wanted me to just verify and submit a calculation that proved that we're mitigating for the entire stone wall that was built. So the original approved plan, which I'm going to share with you right now real quick, showed stairs but no wall, and it showed the mitigation planting shaded in green. And you'll notice this sort of 90-degree cutout, which would have been a lawn area on the original plan. We in the total mitigation at that time was made up of 1,100 square feet here and 300 over here, for a total of 1,400 square feet. And on the new plan, you can see we filled that in, and we increased the mitigation to 1,150 square feet here. So there's 50 more square feet to make up. I thought I calculated 3 to 1 for the area of that. But there's also some flagstones here. So I'm going to refine the mitigation calculation and hopefully satisfy your staff. I'm hoping you could close pending submission of a revised plan demonstrating the mitigation area is sufficient. And with that, I'm happy to take questions.
Thanks, Mike. Alyssa.
Thank you. Yes, I did meet with Mike the other day to go over the staff reports. Mike, the other thing to please add to the mitigation calculation is that area where the fill was added, that sort of extended deck walkway as seen in the pictures.
Yes.
If you could survey that, add that to the plan, just add it to the mitigation calculation, that would be great.
Yes.
And I think you confirmed that the existing limit of work would continue to be used for the.
That's correct.
Okay. Perfect. So yeah, that's something that we can condition is just a revised plan showing the appropriate mitigation calculation. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner comments or questions, Russ?
No comments.
Steve?
I agree with them. No comments.
Betsy?
I agree with the previous two commissioners.
All right. One big happy family. Courtney?
No comments.
All right. Kevin?
No comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, Alyssa, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Look. There are no new chats.
Huh?
And nobody has a hand raised.
Make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Third, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Last call, questions or comments? We're voting to close the hearing. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Third, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Russ?
Robbins, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Mr. Borselli.
Thank you all. You wore me out tonight, but I'm done. So have a good night.
Night, Mike.
But we're not.
I know. You
You
volunteered.
can hang around.
You volunteered.
Don't remind us.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks. Next up, continued hearings under an enforcement order. Joshua O'Brien and Melissa Mayo O'Brien, 22 Deer Pond Road, East Falmouth, Mass. Unpermitted installation of a dock, construction of a shed in patio, and associated clearing. Alyssa.
Thank you. Yes, this is a continued enforcement hearing for two properties out on Deer Pond. The hearing was continued to allow for the commission to make a site visit, and we've had a couple sequential continuances after that just to find a good time for the homeowner to rejoin us at the hearing. I do know that he is in process of working with the planning board to merge the properties. I don't believe that's been completed yet. So with one contiguous property, there may or may not be room for mitigation for the unpermitted patio, which I believe the homeowner would like to keep to the greatest extent possible. Also looking to keep the unpermitted shed on the property. I believe the dock has already been removed at this time. So staff's recommendation is to seek comments from the board, see what your opinion is in terms of the location of the shed, the patio, what can be mitigated for, and based on the aerial photos submitted and your site visit, if it appeared that restoration is actually needed, if there was clearing performed on the properties.
Okay, you just said it's on the agenda for the planning board or for ZBA.
Perhaps Mr. O'Brien can comment. I'm not sure if it's on an agenda or if you're simply just still working with the town departments.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I was successful in combining the lots. That has been filed with the county, as a matter of fact. So it should be going through whatever process they need to do to update the record. But I do have the stamp from Jed, and it has been filed.
Thank you.
So yes, the 0 and 22 have now been combined into one lot, which would be 22 Deer Pond.
Okay. And for clarification, Alyssa, if these are allowed to stay, they would require mitigation, but you said something about there's not enough room for mitigation. It's pretty wooded, pretty heavily wooded lot.
Yeah, so one of staff's initial concerns is solely through review of aerial photos, it appeared that there was an understory in between basically the house and where the shed is. So it appeared that it had been cleared, but we're only as good as the quality of the aerial photos. Perhaps the leaf layer was raked. Hard to tell if actual shrub understory was removed. So that will just need to be a judgment from the commission if that area is suitable for mitigation.
All right. Jen, I'm not going to pick on you. Just raise your hand if you want to be picked on, though. All right, we're going to go right to commissioner comments. Betsy?
I have no comments.
Courtney?
I don't have any comments either.
Okay. My only comments on mitigation or restoration is that it's a pretty heavily vegetated property, both lots, or now one. So I agree with what you said. It's tough to tell if something was taken out of there. If I had to say anything about it, I would ask you, Mr. O'Brien, let's just not cut anything further, you know. Kevin?
No comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Russ?
Yeah, no comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Steve? Steve, I'm sorry, I didn't hear if you said anything.
No comments, sir.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't looking up, sorry about that. Alyssa, you said the dock has already been removed, correct?
Correct. And if they'd like to move forward, they can file a notice of intent.
Okay. Is that clear to you, Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so really sure what the motion should reflect, Jen?
I do want to be picked on. You should at least require mitigation for the larger shed. If you're looking at the property, the one to the left,
yep.
That definitely should be mitigated for, as should probably the increase in the flagstone patio.
And if any patio is moving closer.
Yeah, the larger, and we're calling it shed, it looks more of like a bunk outbuilding. That is moving closer, but again, we're in the process of grappling with that right now. So at the very least, you should require mitigation, which is why we asked Mr. O'Brien to approach the planning board, because once he combined the lots, then he has the room to mitigate on both lots, or on the larger lot now.
Okay. Okay, so if I understand it, we'd be looking for a motion to approve these increases with mitigation.
Correct. So you'd issue an enforcement order. Mr. O'Brien would have to go back to
Tim.
I want to say with Merrill Engineering, did you go with Tim Santos?
Yes.
Yeah. Go back to Tim, have him calculate it out, show you an area on the plan where that could provide the mitigation, and submit that to us, and then we'll give you a time frame of when the mitigation plantings need to go in.
Okay.
So I'll make a
go ahead.
I'll make a motion to issue an enforcement order doing all the things that Jen just said.
Third, second.
All right. That's what I was looking for. All right. We have a motion and a second to issue an enforcement order. Last call. Questions or comments?
Do we need to put a time frame?
Well, Courtney, you should probably
we have to see the plan first.
Okay.
So we'll get the plan from Merrill and then go from there, right?
I don't really even think you need the two-step process, Mr. Chairman, as long as, staff can review the plan from Merrill. We can put appropriate planting parameters in there, as in, plant by, June 31st or June 30th.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think this needs to come back.
Okay, perfect. So the motion and the second is to issue an enforcement order. There's no other questions. We're voting to issue the enforcement order. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have issued an enforcement order. Thank you, Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night.
Mr. O'Brien, I'll
Thanks,
send you an
sir.
email tomorrow just to recap.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Next up, Jane Sahagian, 21 Davis Neck Road, Falmouth, Mass. Unpermitted vegetation removal, installation of a patio, and construction of a staircase within conservation jurisdiction. Alyssa.
Yes, thank you. I am promoting 2 accounts under the name Sahagian up as a panelist. Okay, one went through.
Got it, Alyssa.
Yeah, I'm just going to send another promotion. I'm not sure if it's just a redundant account. Okay. So yes, the homeowner is now being promoted. This is an enforcement hearing for the property at 21 Davis Neck Road. As mentioned in the staff report, through review of an abutting property, we noticed a few discrepancies out at 21 Davis Neck, items that would have required permission from this department or perhaps might not have been approved to begin with. Let me just run down the list here. One section in particular that came to note, as seen in the attached aerial photos, is there was a contiguous stretch of vegetation transitioning from 21 to 27 Davis Neck. So that's how it came to our attention during the notice of intent review. We noticed that that area was gone, had been removed. It was between 2017 and 2019. That area, though the homeowner states that it was invasive and not quality vegetation, it still was zone A vegetation that was to be protected. So staff is recommending that area be replanted. There is also a small patio in the backyard that is technically moving closer than the present primary structure. So staff is recommending that that patio be removed. In the front yard, there were a few minor hardscape changes, though that appears to be flood zone only and can be approved after the fact. Sort of the last issue that came to light was the planting of bamboo on the southern property line, and staff has advised that that process really shouldn't continue, considering how invasive it is and the damage that it can cause. So we did speak with Mr. Sahagian, the homeowner here. It was back during that notice of intent process, sort of presented our findings, and considering we have recently issued a COC for the property to the south, this enforcement came back into light. So we were pursuing it this way by bringing it before the board. And staff is recommending that a current site plan is obtained for the property to highlight these areas, determine what can be permitted after the fact and what may need to be removed or restored. And then Mr. Sahagian, I'm going to send you a little notice here. You can click on that to unmute yourself if you'd like to address the board at this time. Do you happen to have video, sir? I'll send you another notice. There we go.
There you are.
There you go. We can see you.
Welcome.
We can't hear you if you are trying to speak. Can you hear us? If you can hear us, can you raise your hand or nod your head? Okay, good. We're halfway there. Are you connected to computer audio? Let's see if this helps.
Just muted himself again.
Well, I muted and then I clicked the button, asked to
Okay.
unmute. Maybe it was just wasn't working.
Like there's another choice.
Yeah, I'm working here.
Hello?
Yes,
We
we
can
can
hear
hear
you.
you there.
You have to talk through the.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We
Yes.
can.
Okay, I'm actually talking to you via phone.
Got it.
Okay, thank you.
Does that work?
Yes.
There seems to be an echo.
There is, but that might be our only option right now in order to hear you.
Okay. So we're good?
Yes. If you'd like to say anything to the board at this time, you can
I would.
proceed.
I think it's relevant to note that I think this issue may be somewhat confused by the fact that 21 Davis Neck Road and 27 Davis Neck Road were jointly owned by Mr. and Mrs. Fox. Upon 27 Davis Neck Road applying for a building permit to do major renovations, conservation became involved. It's been the contention of the board with my conversations with Alyssa that I removed vegetation, I removed plantings. And I've told her on many occasions that definitely was not the case. And I think part of the confusion here, notwithstanding the fact that she submitted a number of photographs, I think the angle at which they're taken and the dates on which they were taken suggest that those plantings are not on my land, but on the Dagos land. The only thing that I removed when we bought the house in 2016 was vines, poison ivy, bamboo, and numerous mounds of cans and bottles, and a number of things of a marine nature. The Foxes, having owned the property jointly, had a dock that I gather that these materials came from. In having a few conversations with Alyssa, I notified her that when this issue came up, it kind of forced me to go back and review my paperwork on the purchase of that property. The original order of conditions that the Foxes received when they built the house that we now own at 21 Davis Neck Road, the original order of conditions shows only one order of conditions, and that is that the owner of the property take all reasonable care to not in any way damage the resource area. The plan shows nothing more than a row of hay bales. No plantings, no trees, nothing at all. So to suggest now that we have removed something that was never required, I think that order of conditions speaks for itself. Furthermore, the other issue of the so-called patio area is nothing more than a circle of blocks, if you will, jumbo granite blocks, which is a place where we sit and occasionally have lunch. It's not a structure by any nature, and frankly, if required, they sit on the ground. I can get rid of them within a couple of hours if in fact you require that. They don't do any harm. If you've looked at the property, you see that it's been exceedingly well taken care of. The only other issue being the set of steps on an existing deck. The steps were put there from a safety standpoint in order to access the backyard without going down a rather slippery slope on the side of the house. They extend out approximately 6 feet. The stringers rest on the ground, the feet of which are probably 6 inches by 2 inches each. I guess that's it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for participating. Alyssa.
Yes, apologies. I had forgot to mention the staircase off of the deck, which appeared between 2018 and 2019. Considering there is a 100-foot buffer to a salt marsh, it may be moving closer. We can determine that with an updated survey. I really don't have much more to add. I think the photos speak for themselves in showing vegetation in 2005 and 14, and then lawn by the time you see 2018. Nothing more to add at this time. Thank you.
All right. Jen?
If you would like me to show you the near map photos, I can. I have them up. I have near map up on my computer if you want me to share my screen.
Please.
Okay, here's 2017. We have 2019. So we have this area right in here. Turns to lawn. It's 2018. Here are the stairs that come off the deck. And again, I think the salt marsh we pick up somewhere around here. So we don't know. If they're moving closer, that would need to be surveyed. Here is the patio area. That would need to be mitigated for, as well as some hardscape improvements in the front, but that's just flood zone only, correct, Alyssa?
I believe so.
Yeah, we believe so. We don't have a plan. And then 21, it's just all on. 22, 22, 23. And then we're coming into last year. So.
Before you, can I speak?
Hold on, please. Jen, are you all set?
I'm all set. I just wanted to show you the photos to bring it up. You're looking at probably something black and white on your staff report, so I just thought it.
Right. All right. Go ahead, sir.
I was going to ask before that last plan was taken down, the lot line that you're showing, is it possible to put that back up? That last plan?
Jen?
Yep, I'm working on that right now, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Just a little slow tonight. Yeah, I mean, we don't know if this is, I mean, this is near map. I can't determine that this is absolutely in the correct place, but this is what you need to focus on, this area right here, the patio, the staircase.
Well,
So-
I was going to point out that 2 surveys of the lot line have been done. One by ourselves and one by recently the Daigles. I don't have the ability to point, but I can tell you that the area, if you can see where the bamboo ends, right there, there's the survey stake ends right in the middle of that bamboo. That line, that boundary line is 220 feet in a straight line with no deviation. So if the survey stake is at the end of that bamboo, that survey line is basically back here, basically back in this area, which means that the new plantings are on the Daigle's land and these areas here, which they inappropriately encroached on our land. There is no plantings. There has never been any plantings. Everything that I removed, I previously explained. And as I've said before, the original order of conditions didn't require any plantings. So I don't know how you can talk about plantings being removed that were never required. And again, with regard to the patio area, it's if it poses an issue, if it's a big thing, I'll get rid of it. If in fact you don't want the steps there, the only other way we can get is via on the left-hand side, which is kind of slippery but if you want us to get rid of those steps, I'll get rid of those.
Okay. Jen, can you stop sharing? Yep, thank you. So Jen and or Alyssa, the stairway and the patio, are they permittable with mitigation?
Don't know, we don't have a survey.
So
We need the survey.
provide those, sir?
Excuse me?
Survey? Are you willing to provide a survey?
I'd rather remove the steps than get involved with a survey, frankly.
We also have the issue, Mr. Chairman, of where the actual patio is now, used to be vegetated. Now, you know, when we say you remove vegetation, sir, we're meaning you remove natural vegetation. The briars you talked about, the poison ivy you talked about, the other shrubs that you don't know what you removed. You know, that is all buffered to a salt marsh and that needs to be replaced.
The
And
only
we
thing,
really,
the only
really,
thing I
really
do-
need you to stop planting, actively planting bamboo.
I am not actively planting bamboo.
Okay.
I'm not.
Okay.
In 2021, you actually came to the property with a site visit. You saw about a 7 or 8 foot gap from the existing bamboo to a tree directly behind the Daigle's trash receptacles. I was simply allowing the existing bamboo to gravitate, to fill that in, so that I wouldn't have to look at his trash receptacles. You said, fine, don't encourage it, but That's where it was left, and that's where it's been since.
Jen and or Alyssa, the 2021 was a certificate of compliance was issued. Did I understand that right? For previous order conditions?
To 27, not that this one.
So that was
Okay.
when a notice of intent was filed in 2023. What Mr. Sahajian is referring to as a violation letter was sent to the property in 21 by Kevin. There was a complaint that bamboo was being planted, so we were simply investigating it at that time.
Okay, so there's no order conditions issued for this property.
No, the one in reference, I don't actually have the date in front of me. It was very old. Mr. Hajian is correct that it does not show vegetation on it, but a lot of plans did not back then. It simply showed a limit of work where the remainder of the property from the limit of work to the water was, more or less intended to remain in its natural state. It wasn't written as a special condition anymore. That wasn't typically done at the time, but in your regulations, it was required that Zone A buffers stay intact. I wasn't there. I would say at least since the regulations were last updated in 2008.
Okay, well that's where I was going with it is, if it was recent enough that we could get our bearings with it, that's all. All right, so.
May I ask a question, Jamie?
Yes, ma'am.
So obviously there's like a tongue of salt water and salt marsh. Is that salt marsh right behind?
It appears that it does terminate, perhaps looking west from the home. I'm not sure to the extent where salt marsh turns into wetland. I don't recall on the 27 Davis Neck plan if they fully delineated all of that. I think if they did, we would have tried to pull from that.
And they probably didn't. I mean, there's no reason they would have had to.
Correct.
Wasn't within 100 feet of their house.
Yeah. And they did have all salt marsh, so it might not have been worth going any further.
Right, right.
But we can't delineate anything because we don't have an accurate plan.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay.
Typically at this point, in seeking additional commissioner comments, Mr. Sahajian, in order for the board to make a comprehensive recommendation, we do like to ask homeowners if they would allow the commission during the next week or two, if you would allow them to visit the property just to see everything in person. So they can just not simply rely on the aerial photos that we've provided them, but actually see it as we have. So I'm not sure if you'd be up for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That tongue, Betsy, is being shown on the state layer as salt marsh.
Okay, yeah, well, I'd like to go out and
if I grab it from where the state layer has it delineated and state layer is just going off a thing, it's 92 feet to the edge of that stairs. So, I mean, the stairs may be moving closer into the zone A of the salt marsh as the patio. And again, where the patio was, there was vegetation. It might not be in Mr. Sahajian's mind as quality vegetation, but it was there and it was removed and a patio was put in.
Could we have a continuance for 2 weeks so we can take a look at this?
I think that makes the most sense. I mean,
yep.
Because then I didn't mean to skip over everybody. I was trying to get an overall of what's going on. So anybody that has any questions or comments, please raise your hand. But I do think it makes sense that we continue this. And if we're allowed to go on the property, just take a look for ourselves. So now we can see what everybody else seems to be seeing or not seeing and make a better informed determination. Does that make sense to you, sir?
It does, and I'd be very happy to be there in person to answer any questions.
All right, so I think we should go that direction. I'm not dictating, I'm suggesting.
So we actually don't have a meeting in 2 weeks. So it has to be 1 week or 3 weeks, depending on how busy we are.
Well, if you went 3 weeks, that would be the 26th. You already have 3 continued notices. We haven't received any new notices for the 26th yet. And you already have 4 enforcement orders on that night.
Ooh.
Well,
Maybe.
3 enforcements. 2 of them are like the same enforcement.
Yeah.
So is it the end of the world to do it, to go one more week than that?
No, I
Would
think
that-
one more week would be preferable. Mr. Sahajian, would March 5th work for you?
If it works for the board, it's fine
Yeah,
with
we're
me.
gonna, what we'll do is we'll continue it out to March 5th. That'll be the next hearing. And in between that time, the board is gonna visit your house. They're gonna go at all different times because everybody has a different schedule. Is that acceptable to you?
That's fine.
Okay.
So it's not going to be a joint meeting of the board where all are going to be present simultaneously.
No.
Yeah, it can't be.
Okay, no, I get it. I
Yeah.
just, the only reason I ask is that issue with regard to the actual boundary line as compared to what you're showing on your plan seems to be completely different.
Okay, so Mr.
Yeah.
Sahajian, what I put up on the screen isn't actually a plan. It's an aerial photo, okay? That the program is just superimposing lot lines on. Those are not surveyed accurate lot lines, okay? So yes, I understand it's concerning to you, but in our world, we understand that the lot lines shown on near map are, you know, they're not field confirmed accurate.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I guess I got the impression that it was very important from the board standpoint that I had removed existing shrubbery that was on our lot. And I never did that.
Okay.
So at the request of the applicant, I make a motion to continue this enforcement hearing until March 5th.
Bird second. Would it, and I would
All right.
ask a question when the time
Yep.
comes.
Go ahead.
Would it be possible for him to get the lot surveyed and staked by the say within 10 days or so? So when we go out, we know where the boundary really is.
The stake, the last stake that you'll see is right at the end of the bamboo. That was the most recent survey done by the Daigles, and it's exactly where, when we bought the property, the last survey stake was placed, right in the middle of that bamboo. And it's important to note, there's no deviation in that line.
I can send the commission a copy of the COC plan that was recently approved for the property to the south, and you can use that as a reference point if that's helpful.
That would be helpful.
That would be good, thanks.
Right, so we have a motion and a second on the table to continue this till 3/5. That'll allow commissioners to to do their own site visit, get the bearings, and make a more informed decision. So we're going to vote on the continuance. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Russ,
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Matt and I.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until March 5th. Thank you, Mr. Sahazian. And we'll see you on site.
I'd be happy to be on site, but unless I misunderstood, I'm not going to be able to.
Not necessarily, but
I mean, I'd love to be able to meet with at least one person that's going to be there.
You can talk to any one of us, but we can't predict when we're going to be there.
I was
We'll knock on your door.
Well, we're not down. It's a summer house.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's all right. We'll get our bearings, and then we'll have clearer questions, and we'll go from there. I mean, that's all we can do.
No, that's
Thank
fine.
you for participating. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have a good night.
Good night.
All right, next up is to vote order of conditions. First up, Robert Parker, 26 Deacons Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. Alyssa.
Thank you. In terms of the quorum, we have everybody.
Yep.
So this is a small raise and rebuild down on Deacons Ave. Not too much going on the property other than an upgrade to a Title V from a cesspool. There was an overall decrease of impervious surface, so no mitigations required. Mike Borselli presented the project, did say he confirmed with Board of Health that there is in fact a 3-bedroom count, so there's no increase in design flow. In reference to the DPW department, it looks like they might need to remove their existing post and rail fence, but they were amenable to that or getting a license from the select board. The fence that is encroaching on the property to the south will be reconstructed fully on the property. And the plan has already been updated to reflect our surveying comments regarding some vegetation and a stoop in the backyard. So I don't believe we had any special conditions.
All right, anything anybody want to see in there? All right, what are you thinking?
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions as extensively discussed, especially the special condition.
Bird second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. Last call, questions or comments or input. We're voting to issue an order of conditions. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Russ.
Robbins, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, 2017 Kurth Lafferty Revocable Family Trust, 50 Nemasket Road, Falmouth, Mass. And I have the quorum as excluding myself and Russ.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So this property was also a raise and reconstruct. The house is going up on pilings because it does fall within the velocity zone. They're putting in a pool with a patio around it. There was a small bit of patio moving closer. They have remedied that. This was the one with the landscape plan by Tom Lee. So that has been updated to reflect the appropriate mitigation species, identify the extra planting area. All the trees on site have been added. Revised architecturals have been received because they were asked by this board during the first hearing to reduce the enclosed space as much as possible. So they did reduce it a bit. It's under 300 square feet now. And I think all of our concerns were addressed.
This is the one with the 2 little tiny closets, right? You go in the front door and then there's a little closet to either side, and then a stairway and a elevator.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Anything anybody want to see in there? All right. What are you thinking?
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Bird second.
You have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. Last call, questions or comments or input. You're voting to issue an order of conditions. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous with this very small quorum. You have issued an order of conditions. Last motion, who wants it?
Move to adjourn.
Pat,
Second,
second.
O'Brien.
Gladfelter, aye.
Bird eye.
Robbins,
Matthews, aye. Hey.
Pat and I.
You guys went way out of order.
Did we hear from Kevin?
We did not.
What?
Kevin, you want to stay in the meeting?
No, I thought I already said aye.
We're just checking.
All right. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.